The prairie ones carried whispers of sorrow through the wooden slats of the old homestead where Evelyn sat in a dimly lit room with her arms bound by the chains of family tradition. Her kin had decided her fate without asking her heart. A cruel sentence masked as protection. They told her it was for her own good, that she was too reckless, too trusting, too filled with ideas that didn't belong to a woman. But Evelyn knew better. She was a prisoner in her own home, locked away to ensure her obedience. Each day, the creaking floorboards echoed the weight of her footsteps as she paced the room, staring at the barred window, dreaming of a freedom she could almost taste but never touch. She prayed for rescue, though she dared not believe it would come. The world outside was wide and dangerous, and her family knew that confining her was the only way they could keep her under their thumb. Yet Evelyn's spirit was not so easily broken, for her heart still clung to the hope that someone out there could see her suffering and defy the power that held her captive. Miles away, a lone cowboy named Colton rode the trails with the sun setting against the horizon, painting the sky in blood-orange hues. He had heard the rumors whispered in town, rumors of a woman unfairly locked away by her own kin, a woman whose spirit burned brighter than the chains meant to bind her. Colton was not the sort to meddle in another family's affairs, but something in the story struck him deep. He had lived a life of solitude, a man hardened by the range, but he carried an unshakable sense of justice. He couldn't stand the thought of someone's freedom stolen because of greed or pride. So he rode faster with each mile, until the silhouette of the old homestead came into view beneath the fading light. His heart beat with purpose. Not for glory, not for gain, but because no soul deserved to wither away behind walls built from cruelty. He tied his horse beneath the trees, approaching quietly, his eyes scanning the shadows of the porch and the windows for signs of life. Inside, Evelyn pressed, her head against the wooden door as if she could somehow push her way through by sheer will. She whispered to herself of the day she would walk free, when her kin's voices would no longer echo in her ears. She almost didn't hear the creak of boots against the floor outside the door, almost didn't believe the low whisper that called her name. Her heart leapt as her breath caught in her throat. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. Then came the answer, firm yet gentle. "Someone who means to set you free." She stumbled back, her hands pressed against her chest as she realized that the stories she prayed for might finally be true. The door shook once, then again as Colton threw his shoulder against it. The old wood groaned and cracked, splinters flying with each strike until, with a thunderous crash, the door gave way. Strength and defiance, his eyes locked onto hers with an unspoken promise. Evelyn's heart raced as she stepped toward him, her chains clinking, her soul daring to believe in rescue at last. But their freedom would not come without resistance. Her kin stirred at the sound of the broken door, their footsteps heavy as thunder in the halls. Colton's hand reached out to Evelyn, steady and certain, as though he could shield her from the storm. She took it without hesitation, her fingers gripping his as though they had always belonged there. He pulled her close, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist as the voices of her family grew louder. "You're not staying here another night," he whispered fiercely. And in that moment, Evelyn felt a power greater than fear, a power born from the courage of the man who had broken through walls for her sake. The chains no longer defined her. They were nothing but broken echoes of a past she was ready to leave behind. Together they faced the darkness, the air thick with danger, as Colton prepared to carry her away into the freedom she had longed for all her life. The night air hit Evelyn's face like a baptism as Colton led her from the shattered room into the open yard. The prairie stretched endlessly around them, the stars beginning to scatter across the heavens like diamonds spilled on velvet. For the first time in months, perhaps years, Evelyn could breathe without the weight of walls pressing in around her. But behind them came the shouts of her kin, voices laced with fury and betrayal. They charged into the yard with torches and rifles, their wrath burning hotter than the lantern flames. Colton pulled Evelyn close against him, his stance wide and unyielding, like a man daring the storm itself to strike him down. He knew the fight ahead would not be won with brute strength alone, but with the sheer conviction that freedom was worth any cost. Evelyn clung to him, her heart pounding, torn between terror and the profound sense of safety she felt in his arms. She whispered, They'll never let me go. Colton met her eyes with a fire that silenced her doubt. Then they'll have to try and stop me. The homestead yard became a battlefield of wills. Evelyn's kin hurled accusations, branding her ungrateful, reckless, dishonorable. But their words, once sharp as daggers, now fell dull against the armor of her awakening spirit. Colton answered with silence, his actions louder than any reply. With one swift motion, he lifted Evelyn into his arms, cradling her as though she weighed no more than a feather, his muscles straining with determination as he carried her toward the waiting horse. Her kin lunged forward, but Colton's glare froze. Them in place, a glare that spoke of a man who had weathered storms, faced bandits and buried brothers. No threat they could muster would break his resolve. Evelyn looked up at him, her tears glistening not from sorrow but from awe.